shit. That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boy.
I'm going to share something today with you which is quite personal, but I want to use this story to also use yourself as a mirror. So we're going to do it very interactive. As I'm sharing, I invite you to raise your hand. Actually, I can take that one. It's my water. Oh. That's good. Sorry. I invite you to raise your hand if you can resonate with the story. If there's something I'm sharing in my story, and you say, I went through that, then you can just say, you don't have to say anything, you just raise your hand. And why we are doing this is because many times my story and your story is very similar. What I'm sharing here is kind of the same what you're sharing in your life. I moved a lot, so I know it. I'm taking down my breath. So I'm going to share a story about myself and my own leadership, my own journey, and I'm going to give you tools and questions more than answers. If you come out of here and you feel more empowered to work with these tools, then I have done my job well. So it's not so much about giving you checklists and to do things. It's more about when this happens in your own life, you have the tools and the questions to ask yourself. Okay? So, I didn't see that. That's nice. I'm going to talk about self-leadership. So before we talked about leadership of teams. And many times we think that we become a leader the moment we have a team. We think we become a leader when we have people working for us. And I want to really speak to the leader in you no matter what you are. Many of you I spoke to and you said that, well, I'm not the leader. But for me, you are. In the person, we have a follower and a leader. I can speak to your follower or I can speak to your leader. Today, I'm going to speak to your leader. And for me, it has nothing to do with how many people you lead. If it's your student, if you're doing something else, it has to do with the standards you have for your own life. It has to do with how you show up for yourself when you wake up in the morning. It has to do with how you treat your clients, how you treat your partner, how you treat someone who is an asshole to you when you're driving the car, how you treat someone who is not doing what you want in your team. It's the standards you have for yourself. If you learn to lead yourself, if you learn to love yourself, your whole life changes. And you please resonate with me at any moment if you can relate to this. Okay? So a leader to me is someone, no matter what, that has high standards for themselves. No matter what. If I wake up in the morning grumpy, sad, angry, I do what I have to do to deal with my emotions before I show up. It's not your responsibility. If I have to deal with my traumas, my childhood things, triggers, whatever that it has to do with me first. If I'm sad, if I'm angry, if I'm having a bad day, it's my responsibility to give myself permission to stay in. And it took me a while to understand that. The reason I'm here today to talk about this topic of self-leadership is because I went through the journey of burnout. I went through the journey of overworking, and I learned the long way how to not do this anymore. And why this conversation, why now? Because there's been a study, I can share this study with you, one of the biggest leadership studies in the world with 15,000 people last year. They asked leaders, how are you feeling right now with the pressure from COVID and all? 60% were having burnout signs. In the top performing teams, so high performance employees, 84%. What does that mean? If you're leading teams, if you're a leader, if you have people in your team who are high performance, they're pushed to the end of them, how big chance is it that they're gonna stay in the team performing? If you're a leader, 60% of the people around you, I have had a conversation with some of you saying 25% of your team is already having burnout signs. This is not just a fun conversation. This is not just mindfulness. This is really health in our society today. So of course, leadership feels very scary. Leadership feels like, well, if I become a leader, what does that mean? Responsibility. I think leadership is amazing. Leadership is me becoming a role model by how I show up in the morning, how I show up with you, how I show up in this space, how I am leading on the stage, how I'm leading my life. It's an opportunity to change generations, to change how we show up, how we create a life and impact and purpose. It's an opportunity for us to say leadership can be easy, fun, enjoyable, and we don't have to do it alone. So I'm going to tell you the story of my own life. I'm born in Russia, I grew up in Sweden, and I come from a family of non-entrepreneurs. Can anyone relate? Like, I'm the first generation of entrepreneurs, so I had no idea how to do this. My parents are academics, both are doctors, very high, performant at home, academia, you have to study hard. I know some Italians in the room, you have to go to university, you have to do this and this and that, this is really important. So I kind of didn't know why I really wanted to become an entrepreneur, but when I became an entrepreneur, I was really excited. But I had no one to really show me how to do it. So when I started it, I was really looking at how society was doing leadership. I was looking at the men, I was looking at the movies, I was looking at the hustling culture, I was looking at this is how leadership is done, this is how entrepreneurship is done. If I'm becoming a good entrepreneur, then I have to work hard. I have to be a hard employee, I have to take more hours than anyone else, I have to show up. If I'm working harder than anyone else, then I'm a good person. Then that's when I'm getting credit. Not when I'm taking the day off because I take care of myself. Can anyone relate? And I had my first burnout when I was 21. I had no idea what was happening. I was just working really hard, studying at the same time as I was working, leading a team and leading 5 offices at the same time. Really hard working, hustling in Stockholm. And one day I could just not get up. My whole world was getting into vertigo. I was like, what is even happening? I would try to walk, and it felt like I was walking on clouds. And having my parents who are doctors, I didn't even know what was happening. I was just like, I'm tired, something is going on. Nothing was helping us. I had to start working from home, laying down, because I didn't stop working, of course. Why would I do? I was just trying to find a way to do it. And somehow there was a book in my mother's library from Deepak Chopra with a heart on, the only meditation book in the house. I opened it, and somehow when I was reading it, I was slowing down. I was like, this is really good book, There was something in me that resonated with that book. So that's how I got into meditation. Literally 12 years later, I meditate almost every day. Another thing that helped me was doing some sports, some physical activity. I had no idea what I was doing. For 6 months, I was walking on clouds. I had no idea who to talk with. I didn't tell my boss what was going on because I felt weak. I felt weak of not being performing. I felt weak that what if I tell her that I am feeling this way? I have to hide it. So I just told her I want to work from home. Instead of telling her that I cannot stand up right now because my world is spinning. And then when I went into being my own entrepreneur at 21, when I moved and met Sebastian and I moved down to France, I opened my company. But again, I went away from the 6 months of burnout and right back into let's get back to work, let's back to hustling. Can you relate to that if you've had these moments? Well, now I'm good, let's go. And you get back to the same routines, and you get back into hustling, and you get back into doing these things because hustling is good. I was fan of Gary Vee, I was fan of ClickFunnels. I was just like, let's just hustle our way to success. Let's become a 6-figure business, now let's become a 7-figure business, let's go, go, go. Until a moment when I met a client of mine that came into my world. And that client was a mirror of me when I was afraid. Up to that point, almost my clients are rebels. They're like, I'm doing whatever I want. I just have all these rebels. And this client was a copy of me. He was a mirror of me when I'm afraid. And he triggered everything out of me. The more he was afraid, the more I tried to give him what he needed. I tried to fix it. He's saying, he was freaking out like this. And I was like, okay, let me try this. I was spoon-feeding him solutions. Have you ever spoon-fed your clients solutions just to help them to not feel what they're feeling with the stress? And the more I spoon-fed him, the more he was getting nervous. The more I was spoon-feeding him, the more he was getting nervous, until we got to a moment when I literally broke down. And I was like, I cannot take this. This was in the middle of COVID, our business, we had to cancel our events. I had to change everything around. And I was like, I don't care. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the hustle. This client that is triggering me into fear, the worst in me being afraid to lose him, me being afraid to help him. Have you ever had a client like that when you're just trying to do everything and they're still not happy? They still want more, they still want more, they still want more? I was doing so much for him until one night, it was like it was written in the stars. I didn't know what happened. I just had this fuck it moment. I'm sorry for swearing. I just had it. It's enough. It's enough. If I have to go and live at my parents' farm in Greece, I don't care. If I lose everything I have, I don't care. It's not worth to run a business in this way. It's not worth living in fear. And from that night, I made a decision. I don't know how it happened, honestly, but I just decided that no more. And from that moment, my life has changed. And I've been starting to help others to change their life around as well, in one part of our business. So what happened? I'm gonna tell you what I did, and maybe it can help you if you're going through right now to go through at least the 4 first stages of what really happened for me, okay? Are you following me so far? Are you good? Okay. So the first thing that happened, I call it taking away the veil of fear. That was the first step. Step 1 is taking off the veil of fear. How I saw it was that up till that point, my decision making was based on fear. I was doing things not to lose a client, not to give up, if I do this, maybe everything's gonna work out. I was living in a fear of everything will collapse. Did you have moments like that? Irrational waking up, like, I'm gonna lose everything. Everything is working, but I'm gonna lose everything now. And this panic that was coming up in me that I didn't really understand. I had clients sending me message, and I had the moment in my gut that was like, what do they need now? Like almost like I have to fix anything. And well, maybe just want to say thank you. I was living in these moments of fear, and my nervous system was kind of triggered. I don't know if it was COVID, I don't know if it was all of it. Everything made me nervous. And I realized at that point that I was living in the fight or flight mode. It was really hard to understand because most of us actually live in that state in our societies. So to kind of help you to understand what happened was that I started to see myself as I have 2 personalities. One personality is my fear state, and one personality is my courage state. And I start to see what are my symptoms of Daria and fear, and what is my symptom in Daria and courage. Literally like 2 personalities. This is my nervous system in fight or flight. This is my nervous system in peace. I feel good, I feel courageous, I have expansion. And I start to see on this one, for instance, I was feeling kind of like I could not breathe. I was seeing tunnel vision. I could not sleep. I could not reflect clearly. I was making short decisions, just fixing, just seeing what I can solve right now. I could not, if someone asked me, what's your vision? I had no idea. I was just like, I need to fix this. I was living in the state of, I cannot see clearly, I'm just here. I was in a cloud. And here, in this state, here there was, everything is possible. I'm safe, I can expand, I can breathe, I have space for myself to really go deeper. And it had nothing to do with my bank account. I had clients, for instance, who was going through something like this. He was making 20,000 per month, something that he dreamed about, and he was acting like he had 0. Has it happened to you that you have everything you need, but you're still acting like, somehow irrationally that you're feeling that? I met millionaires who are in that state as well. It has nothing to do with money. You can train yourself to feel that with no matter how much money you have. What I had to learn, and this is the big realization, was there's a difference between safety and comfort. My comfort level, I got so used to my comfort level that I thought maybe I need to keep it to feel safe. Having the 2-bedroom apartment, to have my studio, to working, to have the travels, to have, that is my safety level. It has nothing to do. My safety level is the farm in Greece and growing vegetables. That's my worst case scenario. How bad is that? Not bad at all. I realized that I had actually so many parachutes, and I really want to invite you to think about yourself. What is your safety level? What would really happen if your client leave now? If you lose your job? If you say, actually I don't want to work with you, actually I don't want to do this, if you quit your job. So I know some of you wanted to quit your job. What would actually happen? Well, I realized for myself that if this client would quit because I stopped force-feeding him solutions, then actually I have my savings. I had some savings. If I don't have my savings, well, I will move back to my parents. Well, at some point I will get tired of them, and they will get tired of me. I can go to my friends. Or after that, maybe I can go and live in the house in Greece. That's my worst case scenarios again, the village house that my parents have. So I realized I had 5 parachutes. And from that point, I could make so much better decisions. So I could take myself through, this fear state. Wait a second, I'm safe, let me go here. By really rationally talking to my parachute, talking about what is my safety, what is my comfort. So my invitation for you on this stage, if you're feeling that you're living in this and you're doing things from a place of fear, ask yourself, are you safe? Are you actually unsafe? Or are you just not feeling comfortable? And what is some discomfort actually meaning for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, if it can change your life? That was the first thing I realized. The fear versus comfort is a huge one. Because when you have that veil of fear, you cannot see clearly. And your decision making is so related to what you're feeling with your fear. You started taking on clients that you started to live in disalignment. That is where you're making the worst decisions. So when you start to take that off, you can think much better. Number 2, when you have taken off the veil of fear, let me just see what I want to talk with you about. Yes. Oh, this one is a good one. So, when I stopped to really live in fear and always working just to keep myself safe, I had to give myself permission to rest. Because what happens when you take away years of fear of flight in your nervous system, that there is a lot of recovery. If you have a burnout, it's actually a trauma response. And I don't know if you have watched the movie Wisdom of Trauma, but it's trauma triggers, childhood wounds, things that you have been keeping under the carpet. That's when they come up. That's when you start to realize that you're actually sad, or you actually don't like your job, or you actually don't know what you want to do, or you don't want to be with your partner anymore. There's so much that comes up. And maybe there's joy, there's everything, but you start to feel a lot of emotions. But for that, you need to give yourself permission to be in a space where you can rest. Permission to take Mondays off. Permission to take 1 week off. Permission to not answer the email directly. Permission to do whatever you want. So can you relate to that? Giving yourself permission is maybe one of the hardest sometimes. To say, actually, I don't want to go to this workshop. Actually, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go out with my friends tonight. I don't want to work with this client. Or I want to do this. I would desire to. It doesn't make any sense, but I really want to go out tonight. It's a Monday evening, but I really want to do that. What do you desire? When you start to give yourself permission, you start to get on new adventures in your life. But the problem is that somehow in our societies, we ask for permission from someone. Question who? Our parents, our boss that we don't even have anymore, most of us? Is it from our clients? Is it from our partner? Who are we asking? Who are we waiting for this permission to have rest? It's almost like, now you have the right to rest. You have been a good girl. You have been working. In Russia, we have a saying that says, first you finish work, then you rest. I want to turn it around. First you rest, and then if you have time, then you work. Because if you start to take care first of yourself and have fun and desire, and you enjoy your life, then creation comes through you. When you start to feel like, oh, life is all about joy and desire, fun, then you have those aha moments. Then you know who to talk to. Then you know what to do. It's not the other way around. And here I'm going to talk about feminine versus masculine. In our society, the masculine is something, we need all the masculine and the feminine. The masculine is our doer. We are doing, we are sending out in the world, it's outgoing. Feminine is receiving, letting things to come our way, giving it space. When you're always pushing, there is no space for the feminine to come into your life. And the feminine, how we let feminine come into our life is, let me work like a crazy man, and on Saturday night I can watch Netflix. Let me really work hard because I worked so hard and now I have the right. I give myself permission to take Sunday off. Can you relate to this? You're giving yourself permission to take the time off only and only if you have been working as a good girl or a good boy. What if we say life is not about that? What if life is about living from your desire, from your joy, from like really feeling alive every morning and say, now that I feel so alive because I focus on my feminine, now I can make the better decision. I don't have to take 20 tasks, I can do the right one thing. So that was my second realization. I have to give myself permission to really explore this new part of myself. And with that came number 3, boundaries. After relieving this veil of fear and starting to see how I can live in courage, and when I started to give myself permission to focus on joy and desire and pleasure and live my life and my work through that, what do I desire, not what do I need to do, what should I do, what is expected from me, what doesn't make sense but what's what I want to do, the boundaries. So, who here has a hard time just saying no?
This is not me.
I'm recovering a people pleaser. For many years I thought that that's how I would be loved. If I would be nice with people, if I would give to them, my clients, my friends, if I would take care of everyone, then people would love me. And for me to learn that I don't need to live in fear, and I don't need to, who am I if I'm not in fear? Who am I if I feel enough? What are my real boundaries? What are my boundaries when it comes to staying home and missing the karaoke and not feeling that I will be less loved by this community? That's a good example. How am I feeling when I allow myself to just feel like, what do I want to do? What is right for me? What feels in my alignment? What is overdoing and what is underdoing? What is my right? When I do this, it's exactly how much I want to give. I'm going to give an example. I'm leading a She Leads Mastermind. Every Friday wherever I go, I lead the female leadership mastermind to the local community for free, every Friday morning. And a friend came to me and she said, can you do it on a Saturday? Because I'm working on Fridays. And I tuned in with myself and I felt, I don't want to take my weekend off. I want to give to the community, but I want to do it in my kind of week time. And then she asked me, while I'm working, I know the guilt came up. Can you relate to that? As people are trying to kind of guilt shame or guilt trip you or shame. I was feeling the guilt coming up and I said, no, actually, this is the way I want to give. And because I stood my ground, she actually changed her schedule to join. So it allowed her to also listen to my boundaries and respect them. And she joined and everyone could continue like we wanted. So I didn't try to change my boundaries, my needs, what I needed. I listened to what is my anchor. And with love, I allowed them to also get to that, to really regulate with that. Another thing I want to talk about is that how do you then work with boundaries with others is that many times when someone doesn't respect their triggers of not feeling enough, has a lot to when do you with say no to someone, their trigger, and they feel bad, it has a lot to do with their stories. So what happens a lot of times in boundaries, in conflicts, is that we feel that there's almost, I feel hurt and you feel hurt, and I say no and you feel even more hurt and abandoned, and then you react, and we go into this trigger zones. And what I learned to do with boundaries is to really say, I love you, but I love myself more. I need this for myself because I will be better for you if I allow myself. I can give from a full cup. Can you relate to this when you have those conversations, the tough one? Feels like you're not there, they're feeling all this emotion, but that's their journey. And if you can be with love and say, I love you, I care about you, this is just about me, it has nothing to do with you, you can also help them to heal. There is a way to do this. There doesn't have to be more disconnection. We can have boundaries and say no without it has becoming something that will disconnect us. It can actually empower the whole communities. And the fourth part I want to say is identity. When all this happened, I felt like I had a new identity. Because who was I now that I was no longer afraid? I mean, of course I was afraid, but my life was not based on fear. My life was no longer based on how fear would, rule my decisions. When I could set my boundaries, I had more space and time because I was not doing all these things I didn't want to do. I had space to give myself permission to rest, so I was doing things differently. I almost felt like I lost my identity. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah.
So it was really kind of a weird feeling because I almost felt like, who am I if I'm no longer over-pleasing, not over-hustling? Who am I really? And I just want to share this with you. If you're going through this experience, I know it's scary, but maybe it's the best thing that can ever happen because you're work in progress. Your whole life, you can play with your identities. And I start to really discover myself more because I start to say, well, I can just be here and talk about this. I don't have to be, I was a LinkedIn girl for many years. I can reinvent myself. I love dancing. I went back to dancing. I love cooking when I want to. I love playing with different roles of my identity, archetypes. I just like, who am I? I can play with all that. It became a game. It's almost like I'm playing different roles because I'm in the mood for today I'm more soft, today I'm more gentle, today I'm more open, today I'm more social. I can play with all of that. I allow myself to be all of it. And identity-wise, what I had to realize was that nothing is wrong with me that I feel a bit lost. Because it's a white page. I'm rediscovering myself. And naturally, this is something that will happen. And I just want to kind of give you the reminder that it's all fine that if you're feeling this way right now, because it's just the beginning of a much bigger identity. So just to kind of wrap up the 4 things I mentioned, unveiling the fear, giving yourself the permission, and boundaries, and communication around boundaries, and identity. I just want you to have this in mind, no matter where you're going through right now, that is all normal, and this is just the beginning of stepping out of this way of living in fight or flight mode. And the other side, it's marvelous and beautiful, and I just want this for you, because when you start living there, you're not getting better just for yourself, but you're getting better for everyone around you as well. So thank you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boy.